Greetings, sailors! Welcome back to World of Warships and day 5 of the Supporter Week. Yes, we're actually almost done. There's only one more of these videos to come. Now, this is going to be Andy CX, who we've seen already, and this is going to be American cruisers. And the reason why we're showing another replay of somebody we've already had this week is that I have run out of replays from people we haven't already seen. I only have so many replays from different people. Well, I mean, I say that. There's a couple of people that send me a lot of replays, and one of the reasons why you get a lot of familiar names in the Supporter Spotlight videos I do every fortnight normally is because there are only so many people sending me replays. And I have, from those people, quite a good choice of replays to pick from. But in terms of showing people you haven't seen before, well, I can't magically manufacture replays from my Patreon supporters that don't send me them. So yeah, you see the difficulty there. I can only show what I've got. So yesterday's theme was Russian tanks. Today's theme is American destroyers, and actually we're going to have some blue on blue action here because it's going to be a Cleveland versus a New Mexico. Now initially I thought Andy was going to pull around the corner, go for the safe option and withdraw, and instead he decides no, actually he's going to go head to head with this nearly full health New Mexico. I was not expecting this to go quite how it goes, I'll be quite honest. But I will say, if you're a sensitive battleship driver, you should probably look away now. Yes. So, normally when I say that, there's torpedoes involved, but not this time. This is just straight up pure Cleveland action. Now that initial salvo from the New Mexico just missed totally. He does get one rear turret into Andy's bow, but doesn't do a lot of damage. And of course Andy's now close enough for the secondaries to open up, but yeah, he's already got one fire going, and the guy extinguishes, and there's another fire. And honestly, I thought at this range, okay, Andy surely is going to be in trouble. But the thing is, in warships, as in World of Tanks, circle strafing is just as valid a tactic. Now, in World of Tanks, it's typically light or medium tanks versus heavy tanks with slow-turning turrets. And it's the slow-turning turret thing that's pertinent here because, of course, battleships have very slow-turning turrets, and the American battleships up to Tier 7 in particular, they're also rather slow-moving machines. So it's rather easy at this kind of close quarters, although you still have to worry about the secondaries a little bit, to actually outplay them in terms of their turret traverse. They literally can't get the turrets around. Although I will say, I think this New Mexico probably has misplayed things a bit as well, because he's not trying to throw his ship around at all. He's just sailing in a straight line. And Andy is just pounding him with these HE shells over and over. He's now got a triple fire going. He's burning from stem to stern. He's screwed, and Andy's not even down to half health. So, yeah, I don't know. And there we go. I think he is actually now just at half health. He gets set on fire by the secondaries. But it doesn't matter. He's just nuked this guy at the cost of, like, I don't know, 10, 12k hit points. And he's taken that guy down from 45,000, something like that. So, yeah, that earned him an Arsonist medal. The battle was otherwise fairly unremarkable, although he did get some hits in, and he had a bit of a running battle with the very last ship that was left on the enemy team, which was Königsberg, I think. But I think the bulk of his damage, the bulk of his XP came from just going one-on-one with that New Mexico and just so thoroughly owning the guy that, yeah, I don't know, that guy was probably not very happy about that. But the entire enemy team was not particularly great. So there you go. As you can see, almost 44,000 from HE shells, another 26,000 from fires, and the majority of both those figures would be from that New Mexico. Next up, we have Hildebrand, who, of course, we have also seen in a previous video. This time it's an older replay and a lower tier ship, the Omaha. So we've kept with the cruiser theme, but this is a somewhat different cruiser than the Cleveland. The armour is definitely less good. It's got a different spread of guns completely. There's a lot of these guns on this ship are sort of casement mounted rather than in turrets, although there are a couple in turrets. That means you get a very nice spread of guns, but it also means you can't get all of your guns on a target at once, although you can get most of them, so it's not that much of an issue. So he starts off with some AP against this enemy Omaha, and at this tier, a lot of the cruisers, it's worth firing AP at, even if you're in something like a destroyer, because they just don't have a lot of armor. They're essentially light cruisers. And as you can see, he's already getting some citadel hits on this enemy Omaha. So it's definitely worth doing. And there you go, there's the first blood. Now, it did look like he was going to maybe drop torpedoes and then thought better of it because that Isakaze was in the way, basically. And this is obviously the last of the American cruisers, barring the Atlanta, which is obviously a premium ship, so I don't know if it quite counts, but yeah, to get torpedoes. And they're not fantastic torpedoes, but they are occasionally very useful. Of course, the Murmansk gets better torpedoes, so there's that. And even the Marblehead, the premium version that's American of the Omaha, does also get longer range torpedoes, but they're not particularly high damage torpedoes. They're actually pretty weak, all things considered. So I have played the Marblehead a little bit. It was one Wargaming actually gave me at Christmas as a I don't know, a present, I suppose you guess you'd call it. But I've not played it that much, and honestly, it's not as good as the Murmansk. But it's not completely terrible. So he's keeping up the fire on these enemy cruisers. Side of a Karlsruhe, well, okay, let's switch to AP shells. He might get some more citadels, because that would be nice. Citadels equal damage. There's also a bunch of torpedoes incoming, but it's unlikely they have the range, so Hildebrand should be fine. Should be. Fingers crossed. Yeah, there we go. They're actually just running out. And it's always slightly unnerving when you see a wall of torpedoes coming towards you, even if you know that they're probably not going to reach you. There's always that niggling little worry that you've miscalculated, that you've not correctly assumed which ship they come from. And especially in a battleship, yeah, sometimes it can be a little hairy. Although the converse situation of that is when you're in a destroyer and you fire your torpedoes and it looks like they're good, oh, and they're going to hit, oh, and it's the broadside of a battleship, and they just ran out of range. That's never fun. That's always just so tantalizing and then such a letdown. So this is quite a lot of the enemy team they're facing off against here. Some of his allies actually went through the middle. Neither team has a cap point advantage right now. In fact, the enemy team's lost 2 ships to 1. So they actually have more victory points, which is nice. But he's having to be a little cautious and make a withdrawal here, because this Wyoming's pulling back. The New York isn't really going in. The Miyagi's all the way back there, and looking towards the south of the map, we can see that it's wide open, completely wide open. So, yeah, somebody's going to have to do something about that, and understandably their carrier's getting a bit nervous. Although, honestly, if you spam the minimap like that with pings, people are more inclined just to be annoyed rather than to seriously pay attention to it. Once or twice is sufficient. Just going at it over and over again is just going to make people annoyed. So Hildebrand looks like he's going to be having to go and deal with this. There's also New York facing that way. The Wyoming's also facing that way, so presumably they'll be putting their firepower to work. But that then means the sea point is quite vulnerable to capture by the enemies, because it's then just a couple of destroyers and a Kuma, is that? Yeah, that's a Kuma. So, yeah. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But for the time being, Hildebrand has to focus on other things. Now, the Nicholas gets taken out by the carrier, and that was obviously the carrier's biggest worry, was having a Nicholas sneak up on him. But there's still this enemy Kuma to deal with, and then a Congo all the way back there. So it's not like this is a major part of the enemy team. Like I said, most of the enemy team went towards C, that northern cap point. So this should be relatively easy to deal with, relatively. And again, AP shells, broadside of a cruiser, absolutely the right thing to do. He's getting some nice citadel hits here, really racking up the damage, and there we go, gets the kill. So that actually takes him up to 50,000 damage already. That's not bad. Onto the HE shells now. The Congo is more towards the edge of his range, and oh, hello. Okay, those must have been from the Nicholas, but they ran out of range, so that's fine. So it's time to just spam Smechi at this battleship, and hopefully take him down to size, because the Congo is rather a good machine. You know, it's got a reputation for being a very good battleship for its tier. It's It's got the range, it's got speed. It doesn't have armor so much. But if you play it smart, that maneuverability comes in really, really useful. And actually, that's one of the reasons why both the Tier 3 battleships are terrible, but I actually think both the Tier 4s aren't bad, and I think the Miyagi in particular gets a bad rap from people. But actually, it's pretty fast. The major thing it's lacking is firepower. But if you can get to grips with how the Miyagi plays, the Congo is a bigger, beefier, more shootier Miyagi, basically. That's yeah, good English, such good English. So if you can get to grips with one, you can sure as hell get to grips with the other. So he's just pouring in fire from the sidelines. It looks like the New York is bearing the brunt of that engagement. That's got to be who the Congo's firing at, but that doesn't mean that Manti can't get a bit of damage out of that as well, of course. And also the carrier still focusing on stuff that's coming up from this side, so he's also had the attentions of that guy. So he's pretty low health now, and well, who's going to get the kill? Is it going to be Hildebrandt, or is it going to be this New York, who really hasn't taken a lot of damage? And if it's Hildebrandt's fires, oh no, okay, never mind. It does look like it's the carrier. Carrier, not the carrier. No, it is the carrier that got that. It must have flooded or sunk him through fire or whatever. Yeah, that's... I'm doing well today with words. Same as every other day, really. So they've got 2/3 of the cap circles. And, oh, hello. Although, somebody's just started capping B. Enemy Nicholas? Enemy Nicholas, there he is. Well, as long as Hildebrandt is smart, he can easily demolish this guy. This particular cruiser is, just because it's fast firing, because of the spread of guns, it's very, very good for tackling enemy destroyers. As long as he doesn't fall afoul of the torpedoes from this Nicholas, which the Nicholas is certainly close enough to drop, he should be okay. So one more shot. There we go, and the torpedoes were nowhere close. But, oh, that's brought him into range of the enemy Miyagi. So immediately switches fire with... continuing with HE shells, in fact. You wouldn't necessarily fire AP at a destroyer very often. It is actually possible, by the way, to get full damage penetrations with AP shells on destroyers. But it's unlikely. It's really hard to do, because you have to essentially get the shell to arm before it goes into the hull. And the only way, really, practically, to do that is to hit the water line, and to have the shell hit the water, arm, and then go into the hull. So it's really hard to do. I've hardly ever seen that happen. I know it's theoretically possible, given the mechanics of the game, but yeah, the vast majority of the time, no, just fire HE, it destroys. It's easier. So the Bogue is easily within range, so let's open fire at him. There's also the last remaining enemy ships to the north. His team looks like they've got this in the bag now. They've just about capped C. The enemy team is in full disarray. They've got a really big numbers advantage, so it's just how much more damage can Hildebrandt do at this stage. So once again, the Miyagi's giving him attention. Not welcome attention, but, you know, attention nonetheless. So Hildebrandt turns his guns back that way, shoot at the things that are shooting back at you. And actually, I've seen people do that with carriers before. They will ignore ships that are actively shooting back at them to try and farm damage on a carrier. I mean, carriers can be dangerous, especially if they're sending torpedo bombers against you, which maybe that carrier is sending torpedo bombers against Hildebrandt. But generally speaking, if you want to survive longer, shoot the things that are actively shooting back at you and just try and dodge torpedoes, because it's possible. Yeah, no, these dive bombers are definitely incoming. Dive bombers, torpedo bombers. And I think all too late, Hildebrandt realizes, and yeah, he's not walking away from this one. This is going to be fatal. Yes. Oh well. However, we're actually going to cut the replay off here, because it really is only the last sort of minute or so of the battle. It's two very low health cruisers and the Bogue, who's also very, very badly damaged. So even though his team isn't leading that much on numbers of ships, the enemy team just has no health left. And the Miyagi, there we go, the Miyagi's just sunk as well, because he burned out thanks to well, not thanks to Hildebrand, actually. I think somebody else got the kill, but he burned for enough damage that Hildebrand was able to get a Confederate medal as well. So that was rather a nice cruiser game. An unfortunate ending in that he actually sank, but he certainly helped his team towards victory, and he did rather a decent amount of damage in the process. So as you can see, their carrier was actually top of the team. Now this was 5.0.3. There's been various changes to carriers since then. In fact, the very recent patch, 5.3, has brought in even more changes to aircraft and things like that. So it's just the nature of games that stuff is constantly changing. But as you can see, 50,000 AP damage alone. And that was, with the A-Chief and the fire, enough to propel him to second place on the team. So it was a very good result indeed. And the Omaha is actually a ship I've kept. In fact, I've got now 3, as I mentioned. Oh no, I don't think I did mention actually. I've got the not only the Omaha still, but I've got the Marblehead, which was gifted to me by Wargaming at Christmas, and I've also got the Murmansk, of course. So yeah, it's such a nice ship that I've got 3 versions of it, and they're all reasonable. Although the Marblehead is probably the least reasonable, and the Murmansk is almost certainly by far the most reasonable. That's one way of putting it. So tomorrow will be our final replay, and of course it's going to be, for the reasons I've set out today, it's going to be from somebody whose replays you've seen already, so I can't help it. But it's going to be a good one, I promise. So hopefully you've enjoyed this 1.5 replays, and if you have, you can leave in the comments below, you can hit the like button, you can sub to the channel if you aren't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.